Precedent is a most beautiful thing. The Americans have over 225 solani of constitutional precedent that ensures that Congress has absolutely no power to change the US Constitution except through the required amendment process. Until the 13th Amendment, people in America could be enslaved, and that was that. So by precedent, just as a slave is a slave, a year is a year. Or more precisely, 10 solani, as statute, has recently defined it. Since 1789, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5 invested Congress with the plenary power to fix the standard for weights and measures, the statutory length of a mile, the volume of a gallon, and the units of time, such as a year. It was all. Bushkin stopped, somewhat unamused. What's so funny, Basil? Basil took a second to recompose and gleefully replied, when do you think we should encourage the Americans to address the definition of the mile? Or more specifically, 10 square miles, the area the US Constitution sets aside for the District of Columbia. Perhaps we can also convince Weisbrot to lobby Congress to define 10 square miles to be the same area as Texas. They all burst into virile laughter. All thoughts were identical. In this age of rampant terrorism and emerging Satanism, the US Constitution had become a prodigious source of ingenious, ironic humor. As they calmed, Bushkin asked Basil for his take. Well, Mr. Joker, what made you propose and then double down on the 3-6 pony? Basil became serious. Mr. President, John Robert Weisbrot's character profile, I knew that he would do everything possible to swing Souter's vote. The case was a simple up or down matter that rested on 2 centuries of US legal precedent. The erudite Mr. Souter is not one to capriciously break such long precedent without good cause, despite a liberal gut instinct to do otherwise, especially considering that Congress has sat on its hands for so long and only recently fixed a standard year in terms of multiple solani. As we all know, in the absence of congressional action, the year was, as a matter of British custom, presumed to be 1 solana, 1 Earth orbit of the Sun. However, given the simplicity of the issues in the case, and Daniel Souter's perspicuity for judicial exactness and clarity of reasoning, I reckon the Chief Justice had the force of personality necessary to dampen Souter's gut misgivings and set him back on the path of 2 centuries of orthodoxy and vote with the majority. So, 6-3 was doable. It was definitely worth the bet, merely to have the bragging rights. President Bushkin lauded his friend's insightfulness. Touché, Basil. Very well reasoned, and a bet well placed, win or lose. All present now realized a great milestone had been reached. Within the confines of their 2-century-old rust bucket of a constitution, the Americans had finally stopped using democracy as an excuse to whip out. Until America's new 20 solani Congress decided to amend the US Constitution to define a president's term of office as 4 solani rather than 4 years, its current president, the very popular Stormin Norman Weisbrot, was guaranteed a 40 solani term of office. For Russia, the Americans had finally cleared the last longevity of leadership hurdle and could now be diplomatically encouraged to get on board with Russia's international mission to quell the spread of Wappo-fascist terrorism. Setting down his teacup, Bushkin set the tone. Okay, gentlemen, now that I've been properly fleeced, let's get down to business. What's this damn Pope think he's up to? And the rest of the meeting discussed the ramblings of a Pope who thought he was alone in his thoughts in the paper vault of the Vatican Library. What concerned Bushkin the most was that the Pope could have been fabricating documentary evidence and that their bugs had detected him thinking aloud before putting pen to paper. Such had been the mushroom cloud tactic deployed by the Italians when they fabricated the phony Niger-Iraq uranium documents, which had had the effect of distracting the United States from the war on terrorism in Afghanistan to squander vital resources on a pointless conflict in Iraq. Whether the Pope was conveniently unmasking pre-existing Vatican documents or was fabricating them, his fundamental intent was to co-opt the just war on woppery and sideline it with some fantastical war on Satanism, with Russia's yet-to-be-born miracle child, Anton, undoubtedly cast as the spawn of the Prince of Darkness. Unlike Potussin and the United Nations, President Bushkin was going to ensure that no nation would be taken in by this pathetic repeat of a known WOP tactic. The meeting ended on the consensus that the Russians had an intelligence leak about Anton's genetic uniqueness. Just as the Apostle Peter was jealous about the Apostle John, this Pope was jealous. While one of the Vatican's own saints, Saint Malachi, had long predicted that Peter would be the last Pope, it was equally clear, as foretold in the Second Fatima prophecy, the Virgin Mary had opened her Immaculate Heart to the people of Russia, so that they would prevail over evil. Her gift was a soon-to-be-born male child. The Vatican's pretense of spiritual ignorance concerning Natalia, her revelations and her powers merely amplified how the Russian Orthodox Church and the people of Russia were on a prophesied spiritual and genetic ascendancy. For the preservation of humanity, Pushkin had vowed that this child would be born and raised so as to shepherd the whole world into a new millennium of God's glory, starting with the ascendancy of his own Mother Russia, of course. For, as it was written that cherubim and a flaming sword barred the re-entry into the Garden of Eden for Adam and Eve and all mankind with 46 chromosomes devolving from them, nowhere was it written in Scripture that any other being, animal or plant, such as those with 48 chromosomes, were barred from Eden by its perpetual guardians. Thank you.